Donation from Quint Studer. I'm sure you all know Quint Studer. He's been a very active supporter of the university, the community, and a participant in the Center for Entrepreneurship. So what we are trying to do here in the Center for Entrepreneurship is to create a buzz on campus for entrepreneurial thinking and innovation. We may produce a couple of entrepreneurs in the process, but whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you go to work for a company, entrepreneurial thinking and innovation is going to be attributes that will contribute significantly to your success in whatever environment you have. So we've got a series of programs that we'd like to share with you, and we have some flyers on the desk, and I'd like to call your attention to a couple of events you may be interested in. Obviously today we're going to have some student entrepreneurs that are UWF students that have started businesses or in the process of starting businesses that are going to tell their story and share their experiences, their successes and their failures in starting a business, and give you some context about what entrepreneurial thinking is, what's required for success, and how to go about thinking entrepreneurially and innovation. The other event that I really encourage you to go, and that is on January the 16th at the Little Theater downtown. Senator, Governor, Statesman Bob Graham is coming to Pensacola, sponsored by Quint Studer and Civicon, to talk about community engagement. And I would encourage each of you to try to make an opportunity to go there. It starts at 5:15 on January the 16th at the Little Theater downtown. And he's going to talk about civic engagement. And he is indeed, in my judgment, one of the true statesmen and leaders in the public sector. And then the other is on January the 22nd. We're going to have a presentation of Launch and Side Hustle. That's going to be done by Justin Davis, Dr. Justin Davis, who has published extensively in entrepreneurship, and you'll love him. He's a great professor, very popular in his classes, and I think he'll provide a very informative and entertaining discussion. And then on January 31st at 5:15, in Building 76A in the atrium, that's the College of Business, we're going to have Quint Studer out here. And if you've ever heard Quint Studer speak, again, that's a very enriching experience. And he's going to be moderating a group of CEOs. What we're trying to do here is to try to give students the opportunity to interact and hear stories about from entrepreneurs and successful businessmen in their fields, so that when you get out in the world of work, you'll have some perspective about what your particular endeavors may be. So we'll have entrepreneurs coming out here every week to make presentations, tell their stories, and provide opportunities for you to interact, to get to know them, for them to get to know you, which is even more important, and that will help you in your career. Our mission here at the University of West Florida is to prepare you for successful careers and lives. And this is a high-impact educational experience that will contribute, I think, in a fundamental way to that mission. So with that, let me introduce our moderator for today. Genevieve will be moderating a panel of 3 entrepreneurs, as I indicated, that are students here that have started businesses, and they're going to share their story and their experience with you. Giovanni is one of our top MBA students here. She is a graduate assistant in the Center for Entrepreneurship, and all these arrangements that you see here, the tables, the pizzas, the drinks, and so forth, are the products of her work. So let's give her a nice warm welcome. Giovanni?
Hello everyone, thank you for coming here tonight. It's a pleasure to be the moderator for this awesome panel of student entrepreneurs. By the way, I've never been a moderator before, so feel free to ask any question anytime throughout the presentation. Just raise your hand and I will call you out. We really want a lot of interaction today. Just a little bit about me. As you might notice, I have a small accent, but that's because I'm from Brazil. I came here to play tennis for the university. I graduated December 2016, got my business degree, and I decided to do the MBA right away because I just love Pensacola so much. I love the professors, and I think Pensacola is growing, and so the opportunities around here. And as I started my MBA, I was doing research with a professor. I had one of the best learning experience. And I also had a chance to participate in a civic tech competition in which I work with a programmer, Carson, he's right here. I work with a graphic designer, and we have to come up with any technology that will have a civic impact. So that really changed a lot of my career path and what I wanted in my work life. And that's why I'm so into innovative thinking, entrepreneurial. And if you're here today, I'm really happy because we might have share the same values of life. So thank you for coming. And I'm gonna let the panelists introduce themselves. Basically, why don't you start?
I'm gonna stand up.
Yeah, let's give a round of applause to our panelists.
All right, so as Giovanna said, my name is Basil Kaloba. I'm a junior here at UWF. I am currently studying computer science with a certificate in cybersecurity. My business is Inertia. I currently serve as director of that, and Inertia is a nonprofit. We work mostly in underserved and low-income communities, and our focus is really invigorating kids and getting them interested in pursuing STEM majors. It's not just myself, I serve as director, but Carson right here is a man of many trades. He also serves as our curriculum coordinator. He writes all of the projects that we do with the kids. And then also Yasmin, who's somewhere around here. She's in the back. She's also student body vice president. She serves as our marketing coordinator and handles a lot of our outreach. And then our third team member is Marcus Jackson. You've probably seen him around campus. He has a really big afro, tall guy. He was on homecoming court this past year. He's our operations coordinator. He's actually not here because he has an internship with Toyota, really big internship for him. He's up in Ann Arbor. Talked to him earlier today. It was 35 degrees. And I'm just happy we're in Pensacola, Florida. While it's cold, it's still a little bit warmer than that. So like I said, we are a STEM nonprofit, and our focus is really getting kids interested in that. The way we got started was Marcus and I, we started a chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers here on campus. And when we were deciding what we really wanted to do, we wanted to see our organization engage more with the community. And both of us, our backgrounds are in STEM and in education. So we really wanted to get kids more interested in it. And one big thing that we saw is that if you ask most people, I was even talking to these two gentlemen up here, if you ask a STEM major why they're pursuing that field, rarely will they tell you, I like doing math or I like doing biology, because nobody likes doing that stuff. The reason they do it is because they think it's fun. And that's why I'm a computer scientist, because I know if I want to do something, I can just sit down on a computer, I can go at it for an hour or two, I can build an app, I'll have whatever I want. And we wanted to focus mostly on elementary age students. So I had one friend, Daniel Robar, he had a robotics program that he was working on, but he was graduating. He said, hey, I don't want this thing to die. Would you be interested in taking over it? So we're like, yeah, definitely we'll take over it. And we started figuring out how exactly can we go through this transition plan. And I served as the president of the AI research group here. So I invited a local politician, his name is Doug Underhill. I invited him to come out and speak to our group. During his talk, he said, I wish we could have more UWF students who would engage with the community and get them interested in studying science. I was like, you know what? Me and my friends are actually working on something like that. Would you be interested? And after I told him what we're planning on doing, he said, why are you only doing one school? Why don't you do something bigger? Which is basically the story of my life. Everybody always telling me I'm not thinking big enough. So I was like, okay, let's see what we can do. So I went back to my team and I said, hey, Doug Underhill doesn't think we're thinking big enough. Apparently they didn't think we were thinking big enough either. So we're like, all right, let's figure out what we can do. So we pulled together our heads, our minds, like typical engineers. So we have a problem, what can we do to fix it? So over the summer, this past summer, we started in April with this idea. We wrote a proposal, and we talked to everybody that we knew who knew anything about STEM education. We talked to the mess hall, we talked to people at IHMC, And we had a lot of people who said, hey, that's a great idea. And then we had a lot of people who said, hey, that's a great idea, but people have tried it before and it doesn't really work. And we're like, all right. So we decided, hey, we're not gonna let that get us down though. We're gonna see what can we do. If it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail, but if it's gonna succeed, let's find out for ourselves, right? So we took our proposal around and we did get a lot of interest in it. And after that point, I don't remember exactly how I stumbled to the Center for Entrepreneurship. I think I met Dr. Ranelli at work one day, actually. I worked down at IHMC, and he said, hey, come by our offices and talk to Jim Sparks, see if we can help you guys. So from that point on, we kept on planning and planning and planning, and then one day Jim was like, why are you guys still planning? Why don't you just do it? And we were like, oh, let's just do it. So we went and started in October. We went to 2 schools. We went to Ensley Elementary and Oakcrest Elementary. And the way we work our program is we start off by just talking to the teachers. We don't sell anything to them since we're a nonprofit. We don't have anything that we're selling, but we do want to provide a really good service to them. So we asked the teachers, where are your students struggling? And at Ensley, they told us, hey, they're struggling in chemistry and they're struggling in mathematics. So we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll try to figure out how can we make chemistry fun, how can we make mathematics fun for them. And we'll develop the curriculum, which is mostly Carson's job. He'll develop the curriculum, and then we'll go to the kids and we'll go through the curriculum with them. And then to make sure we're working, we take a few surveys with them, see how interested are you in learning this. And we started off with most of the kids saying, hey, I really am not interested in chemistry. This isn't really fun to me. And at the end of our program, when we asked them, out of 10, how interested are you in actually learning more about this, the lowest number we actually got was a 9. So it was definitely working. It was something that they were interested in. And then one of my favorite things that we do is parent night, which there's some pictures perfectly right there. On parent night, we invite the parents to come out and also the teachers. And we have the kids who actually lead their parents in working through these projects. So we ask the kids, hey, what's your favorite project? So Carson came up with one on clean energy, where they would see how it works if you were to have like a heat plate, geothermal energy, or if you had a wind turbine. And some of the pictures you can see there, like right there you have the heat plate, then also there's Carson who's showing them how to build a windmill. And the kids love it, the parents absolutely love it. The parents find out like, hey, how in the world does little Jimmy know how to build a wind turbine? I don't even know what a wind turbine is. So it's a lot of fun, you get to engage with them. That's really the funnest part of this for me. It is hard, I'll say that for sure, being an entrepreneur and in college. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of really early mornings, but I can say this, that I've enjoyed every moment of it so far. I think the biggest part of it is building a team of people that you have that you can rely on. I know I can rely on Carson. I know I can rely on Yasmin. I know I can rely on Marcus. And then also a team of friends. I have a lot of really great friends that help me out with it. If I got an issue, Keyshawn Patel is student body president. He's one of my best friends. If I have an issue, I know I can text Keyshawn, and he's going to slap me in the face like, hey, man, that's really not that big of a deal. Like, just get over it. But I really enjoy it. I hope this is a beneficial time for you guys. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Hello? Yes.
My name is Boo. I am a biology major. I also do a lot of art. How many of you guys here have ever been pressured by your parents to pursue something and you're doing it right now? All right. Wait, not more of you guys have been pressured by your parents? Really? Oh, okay. Well, I spent 4 years doing what my parents wanted me to do, and that was medicine and sciences, physics, and more sciences. So I have pre-professional biology experience. I have biomedical experience. I've done biochemistry and immunology research, and I'm finishing my biology and clinical lab sciences degree this semester. But I've always wanted to be an artist, which means you live homeless on the streets and beg for money, apparently. That's what my parents said. And my dad's a doctor in Vietnam, and my mom's a nurse in Vietnam, and I guess they have a point since they've never done art before. So clearly they know what they're talking about. There are plenty of moments whenever you guys, and I'm speaking for the Center for Entrepreneurship here, there are plenty of moments when you guys have a dream or you have an idea as to how to start something, and that's basically what you call a business. It doesn't matter how professional it sounds, it's probably a business. It doesn't matter if you're gonna be a photographer, You're going to become a freelance photographer, you started a business. Or it doesn't matter if you're creating a new type of underwear. If any of you guys know Spanx, she went through a lot to be able to make Spanx, and she went through a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of insults to be able to make Spanx. But she's pretty rich right now. The biggest thing that I want to emphasize for you guys is that although I have such a huge background in sciences, I can still start my business in what I actually wanted. I didn't have the courage to pursue what I wanted to do in the first place, so I feel like I used up a lot of time. My business is basically going to a lot of Comic-Con conventions and then drawing at the speed of light and then selling it for $5 each. Now, I can draw a full picture of somebody in 5 minutes, and an entire convention day could be about 8 hours. And I can charge $5 for those 5 minutes and then $10 for 20 minutes. So if you add it up, that's a lot of money per hour. There are plenty of artists out there that actually struggle a lot more than I do, but you gotta be smart when you wanna be an entrepreneur. Somebody once told me that you cannot possibly work on something or try to get money out of it unless you're good at it. There's a certain point where you have to know, should I invest money in something if I'm not good at it? You can if you have the team and the support to do it. So just like what Basil was saying, he probably has the ambition to be able to do something, but he needs the team to continue it. I usually go around the university asking a lot of my friends who I think have good marketing experience, and I pay them to help me during my convention booth. So we go to, let's say, Fandom inside Fort Walton Beach, or we go to Pensacon in Pensacola. If you guys know about it, that's when all of downtown gets taken over by a whole bunch of people in weird costumes. A lot of those guys will pay a lot of money for personal artwork that's completely original. They frame up the pictures that I make on index cards, and then they hope that I come back the next year to be able to draw them again in their different cosplays. A lot of those guys can be considered strange to people, but I have a very select audience, and that's what it's like to think about a business before you start it. I prepared my art booth 2 years before I actually did it. People were wondering how I was so successful financially and stably, because plenty of artists really freak out their first convention. Whenever you plan things out, you can become a very successful entrepreneur. And speaking for Center for Entrepreneurship specifically, we have a lot of cool events to persuade you guys to try to pitch your own ideas. There's going to be something called the elevator pitch later, so that'd be really good for you guys to ask about if you guys have an app idea or anything like that. You start with an idea, but if you want to get successful, you then start to create teams, and then you start to create a brand or an outlook for yourself. So that's mostly about me. I'm an artist by heart, but a scientist by just looks. If any of you guys have any ideas that you want to pitch with me, I'm really open, and I know a lot of things. Thank you.
Is this the only mic that works? Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Hill. I'm the owner of Emerald Coast Coconuts and Emerald Coast Italian Ice. Let's see if I can pause this for a second. So just a little bit about me, my background. I started out in the Army, 18, right out of high school. I joined the Army. I ended up going to Fort Bragg as an infantry paratrooper. All in total, I spent about 8 years in the U.S. Army in the Florida National Guard. I did 2 combat deployments, one to Afghanistan. It's this top left picture, and one to Djibouti, Africa. I've been to about 7 different countries with the military, more countries outside of that. And I've completed over 36 airborne operations, so I like to jump out of airplanes. My first business that I started, if I get the right way, or I guess I'll say on that deployment in Africa, I read a book. It was called Think and Grow Rich. Has anybody heard that book? Anybody? Okay, cool. So it's a really popular book, really well known. We'll just let it roll. I read that book, and I just thought it was so awesome, that it was possible to start a business and be successful. So I came up with this awesome business idea that I was going to start an Italian ice company, because everybody around here does snow cones and snowballs. And my idea was to do that out of Crab Island on a boat. So I went and bought a pontoon boat and did all this stuff, and it actually kind of failed. I didn't make a whole lot of money that first week, so I quickly shifted and see if we can get some pictures. So after shifting, I definitely had my experience of trials and everything, and I struggled. But we ended up doing a bunch of different events all around Northwest Florida. We do a lot of corporate catering. These are some of our various locations that we've had over the past 2 years. So earlier last year, I was down in Key West, Florida, and I saw a gentleman selling snow cones. And I was like, oh, I do that. Let me see how he does it. And he also was selling coconuts, and I thought that was really interesting. I'd never seen that before. I didn't know that Florida grew coconuts. We're actually the only state in the continental U.S. that can grow coconuts. So, fun fact. But I was like, why don't we do this up in Northwest Florida? I've lived here for about 25 years, so I wanted to kind of bring it up here, so that was my idea. So I figured out how to do it, and I figured out very quickly that the reason nobody does it is because they weigh a lot. That coconut right there, they weigh about 5 to 7 pounds on average, each one of them. So it's very expensive for shipping. The first month, I was spending about $6,000 a month on shipping alone. So lots of logistical stuff. Let's get back to that. Trying to stop it. Now, I'm trying to stop it so I can explain some of the pictures. But earlier that year, I tried to sell them on Navarre Beach. Didn't really have much success doing it. We sold about 71 coconuts in a 6-week period at the beginning of the year. And I decided to try to venture out, and I went and pitched to Harbor Walk Village in Destin, if you guys are familiar with that. And we actually ended up securing a merchant contract there. And we sold, between Memorial Day and Labor Day last year, we sold about a little over 8,000 coconuts. We sell them for $10 a piece, so if you do the math, it was pretty profitable for us. We actually ended up on the front page of the Destin Log out there with Northwest Florida Daily News. And we've done several other events with the coconuts as well. And we're actually expanding out this year. We're going to be from Las Vegas, and we also have contracts now in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, along with numerous wholesale contracts throughout the Panhandle right up here. So last year we were the 4th largest producer and seller of coconuts. This year we're trying to be the first. So, yeah. But I'll definitely elaborate more on that, give you guys some chance to get some questions and elaborate more.
I wanted to note that I have bought coconuts from him, and they're really good.
Thank you.
All right, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. I think they're just making my job easier since I don't need to ask a lot of questions. But before we dive into their business now, I'm just curious about what did they did before they become they have this business right now. So, Baze, I remember once I met you and you talk about that you failed sometimes before. You tried something and it didn't really work out, and then you were like, I'm ready for this one. I have the confidence, I know what I'm doing. So can you expand a little bit more? What did you try to do before you create inertia, and some lessons from it as well?
So before I actually helped start Inertia with me and my friends, I had an app that I created my freshman year of high school, my freshman year of college. If you know what the app Booksy is, or the app Style Seat, our goal was to work with the salons and also nail salons, hair salons, different companies in the area, as well as boutiques, and get them online. So it's kind of like a mix between Booksy and Etsy. One of the biggest things I learned from that is that being by yourself working on something is near impossible. That's why whenever we first started Inertia, the first thing I said was hey, we need to get a team for this. And once you have people that are really good at what they do, just let them do what they do. When it comes to curriculum, me and Carson have one-on-ones very often. I don't really ask him how he writes his curriculum or tell him what to do with it. I just let him do it. When it comes to marketing, I just let Yasmin do it. Because before, I used to try to do everything. I used to try to build the app, or I used to try to do all the business work. I used to try to raise all the money, and I ended up just not doing anything well. And that's why the business failed. So I think the most important thing, and the thing I learned from my first experience, is building a team that can lead you to success rather than try to do it by yourself.
Yeah, that's very good. And that kind of ties with what I was talking to you, Alex, another day when you said, it's so good to have this team where you trust. So if you also want to expand a little bit more on how...
So that was definitely one of the struggles I had earlier this year. I was trying to do everything on my own, and I realized I couldn't be at all places at the same time. So I had to grow a team. We actually grew that team to 10 part-time employees last year. This year we're trying to get up to about probably 30 to 50 employees this year to help expand. But yeah, you definitely can't do it by yourself. So I highly encourage you to network, partner with people, and like Basil was saying, let them do their thing. Don't try to micromanage. But definitely you need a team to be successful. If you want to expand anything, you have to have a team to help you do it. So.
And Boo, do you have something to add? I know that sometimes you hire marketing friends to help you out. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how's your team, if you call it like a team or something?
Yes. Here, I'll start it like this. Once upon a time, I hired someone in who was a personal friend, and she is a great person and knows the Comic-Con basis, and she knows the people, but she was a terrible worker. Just because they're your friends doesn't mean they're good workers. So I only really need one partner per convention, but what she did was every time I turned around and I gave her a project to do, she was never there. She was either eating or talking to someone else in the convention. As a boss, you gotta be able to go straight forward, just say, hey, don't do that again, I need you close by. Whenever she comes back, if I turn and say, hey, can you help me with this? She's working on her own pictures, even though it was explicitly explained, you cannot be working on your own business while you're being hired under me. There are just a lot of random things where you start to learn about the business. The biggest thing that I've learned is that sometimes you'll make a lot of employment problems or employment mistakes, but that's okay, because when it comes to starting a business, if you don't make those mistakes, you'll never know the right way. If I had a chance to go back in time, I would hire her again. It doesn't matter how little money we got out of it. I think the fact that I learned from that experience is worth all of the money I could have gotten. So I only really need one person, and I'm still technically looking for that person. I'll pitch it a little bit afterwards, just saying.
And that can go to anything, just an open question. How exactly did you guys decide, like, to take the idea to create something? Like, was that a moment that it just clicked, like that you realized that you could make something, and maybe your expectations in the beginning was maybe a little bit small than what it became? Did you guys have, let's talk a little bit about the expectation. When did you guys start? Did you expect it to turn as big as it is now and can get bigger? Or if Basil, you want to start with inertia again?
Short answer, no. I never thought it would get to where it was. The original goal was just to do like a program once a week, but now we're in 2 schools. Even going through it, every step that we took, we were surprised. So the first day we went in to talk to the teachers, we were like, hey, we got like 3 or 4 people. We can deal with, 1-to-4 ratio, 25 to 30 students. The first school, we got about 38 students. We're like, okay, that's a little bit more than we thought, but that's nice. And then the second school, I was running a little bit late. I got a call from Carson. He's like, there's 53 kids inside this room right now, and I'm the only one here. So every turn that we're taking, we were completely surprised. When we started, I didn't think that, a year from now, I'd be sitting in front of a panel talking about a business that I run. I thought it would just be something that was a club. So I would definitely say, like, being prepared for whatever comes and just kind of rolling with it is definitely something that you should do.
I'll tell you guys a little bit interesting story. So whenever I went to Harbor Walk Village, I walked in there. I had no plan. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just knew I had a coconut actually in a lunchbox with me. And I walked in there and I said, hi, can I talk to somebody? I would like to, be a merchant here. And they were like, yeah, right here. And they walked me into the general manager's office. And I shook his hand. I said, hi, I'm Alex. I would love to sell coconuts here. And he said no and turned his back to me. And went and sat, he was walking to sit down. And while he had his back turned to me, I actually opened up one of the coconuts and got water all over his desk. And I handed it to him. I said, before you say no a second time, try this. And he tried it. And he looked up at me and he was like, let's talk. And, we were trying to figure out, how much my rent was going to be and everything for there. And he said, how many coconuts do you think you could sell a month? At this point, I had sold a total of 71 coconuts over a 6-week period, so the demand was not really there. And I said, I'll sell 1,000 coconuts a month. And he looks at me and you really think you can sell 1,000 coconuts a month? And I said, absolutely. I was definitely over-promising there, but it made me over-deliver. So in our first month, we actually did 1,800, and our second month, we did about 2,400. And I didn't even think it was possible for me to do 1,000. But whenever he asked me that, I wanted to, kind of impress him. I can bring you some money. And luckily, he agreed to it, and I definitely, surprised him as well as myself with how well they performed out there. So really interesting. But yeah, absolutely. I did not expect to be selling that many coconuts.
I want to ask a question. Are you going to pursue coconuts for the rest of your life?
So we are working on some fun things that that kind of we want to promote Florida coconut since we are the only state that can do it, and we have some fun recycling projects and initiatives and stuff like that. So there's a kind of a cause behind it. To be honest with you, I don't even like coconut water. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I don't think it's bad, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. So I don't do it for the coconuts, but we have a saying, our motto for our company is life is better with a coconut. And to us, it's kind of the coconut life is that vacation state of mind where you're positive, you're happy, life is good when you're on vacation. Well, it's kind of live that life whenever you go back home. So we're trying to make positivity louder in a way, so you kind of have like a cause behind everything. So I will say that I hope it does become for many years to come, we plan on selling coconuts. So
The coconut composting business is pretty profitable.
it is.
For fertilizer. It's really good. Good for your plants. I'm a gardener.
Yeah, have you guys actually tried coconut water from an actual coconut? You guys like it?
It's not the same
Raise
as
your hand
commercial
if you
coconut
like
water.
it. Because
It's
I'm from
delicious.
Brazil and I love it. But here I just find coconuts from like a box in a supermarket. So I'm so glad that Alex is doing what he's doing.
He's
And
leading a
I
legacy.
tried to get some contracts with him, but I'm still working on it. Let's see how it goes. I'm just going to open now for you guys if you guys have any specific question to the panel.
Did you have a question up front? No. Commenting on coconut? Yeah.
Oh,
Where do you live at?
yeah.
Huh? Get my business card after this.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
My question is kind of like, when did you know that you were ready?
I'll give my experience for a bit. I personally was ready after 2 years of going to the conventions that I wanted to merchant at. I really recommend that if you guys have a big dream and you know it's going to be successful, you do not start at that moment when you know it's going to be successful. You have to prove to yourself it's going to be successful. For example, I went through Pensacon. How many of you guys have gone through a Comic-Con? A lot of you guys. How many of you guys have gone to Pensacon? A lot of you guys. Pensacon is huge. Like, you know that Pensacon is actually a pretty special convention. We're a small town that has such a large convention. It means we're really special. Pensacon brings so much money to downtown for just a weekend. That's why they have so much support from the airport and all that. That means we could get support if you merchant in a place like that. Now, I've never been accepted into Pensacon because I'm not good enough. But you need to realize your competition. So I went and volunteered at Pensacon and 3 other conventions around Fort Walton Beach and Mobile, Alabama, and looked at my competition. There were a lot of artists there who I've noticed don't do spontaneous commissions. Commissions are artworks on the spot. I do best with extemporaneous things where I get bored easily and I don't want to draw the same thing over and over again, so commissions are best for me. But I went and interviewed a lot of the artists, just kind of being a regular person. I was like, so how come you don't open up commissions? You just sell your own print over and over again. They're like, well, it's really stressful. And I'm just like, really? They're like, yeah, I have to wait like 4 years before I think I'm confident enough to start drawing people on the spot while they're watching me. Now, I can understand that, but I can take advantage of that at the same time. So I finally found someone who does do commissions, and I was like, how much does it cost? And they're like, $40. And I'm like, what? And then I paid the $40, and I watched them draw, and it took them 2 days to be able to finish my picture, and it was in pencil. Not to insult the artist, but I could have done better. That's when you know that you can have something, when you say, I can do better in your head. So now you have the research, you know that you can do better. You've timed yourself, you've timed them, you know you can do it faster. You already have a reason to market yourself. Now you have to be confident. I don't know how you're gonna get your confidence. Go grab a friend, tell them to persuade you're gonna be successful when you grow up. But you gotta be confident in yourself. I don't know, practice over and over again. I set up 5 different live streams where I asked all of my online friends to spontaneously give me requests, and let's see if I can finish it all in 5 minutes. That's what I had to do to prep myself. And when the actual convention started, I was nervous because I knew by theory I would be successful, but reality is different than theory. If the first convention didn't do well and I couldn't even pay for my booth, for example, I'll probably still try again. The biggest issue is if you have an idea and you know you're ready, but it doesn't work out the first time, just like for both of them, they kept going, and now we're up here. So the biggest entrepreneurs are the ones who keep going naturally, if you haven't picked that up by now. But you know you're ready whenever you do the research and then you start doing it. It's different for everyone, but that's usually the highest chance of success.
Real quick, I want to
Thank you,
tap
yeah.
on-
Yeah, you
get on
guys
that
wanna,
too.
feel free to add on
Oh,
that.
yes.
No, and I don't want to contradict anything you're saying, but in my experience, I spent a year in Africa. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. There's not much there in the country I was in, anyways. And all I did was made this awesome business plan on how I was going to make this successful Italian ice company. And I mean, every single minute detail, I got down perfectly. So I thought, I had this awesome business plan, and I harassed everybody that I worked with, like literally 12 hours a day, to make sure I was going to be successful. And our very first weekend out there, we did all right, but it wasn't as successful as I thought it was. And then I actually had some issues with my trailer on my boat. And so I did something else instead, and I made 5 times that much money. So very quickly, I had to change my business plan. So this business plan that took me a year to make, it all changed in one weekend. My very first weekend that I was open, it all changed in one weekend. So you're going to fail. Like, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you prepare, no matter how great your business plan is, no matter who you partner with, you're going to experience failure. But you have to fail forward. But for me, I'd rather fail now so I can learn from it and grow my business instead of waiting a year, and then I'm still going to fail after that year, 2 years waiting that. I'm still going to fail after that. So I say fail now, fail fast, fail often, but fail forward. Learn from your failures. So I would say the best time to do anything, to start anything, if you even have an idea, it might not work. How do you validate it? You got to actually go out there and do it. So the best time to start anything is right now. So if you have an idea, go home and start on it tonight. Because the people that take action, those are the ones. How many people are, I had the idea for Uber. Well, why didn't you do it then? I can't tell you how many times I heard people say that. I had a better idea than Airbnb. Well, why didn't you do it then? Well, they did it before me because they took action. So I would say the time is now to do that. So that's just my opinion.
I do want to mention Airbnb took a long time to set up too. They were doing Obamios before Airbnb, so they definitely trucked through.
I would add to that, I don't know if you can ever really know that you're ready. I don't feel like I knew I was ready, and I still don't feel like I'm ready. And one of our big things that we talk about in our organization is beginner's mindset, which is, in short, you can't know what you already think you know, and you can't learn it. And every single day is a learning process. What I would say is the only way I was just talking to a friend last night who said that she didn't feel like she was ready for something. And basically I told her the only way you can figure out whether you're ready is just do it. If you do it, you figure out, hey, I wasn't really ready for that, but the next time you try it, you'll figure out something different. So my biggest advice is just find out. The only way to find it is just jump in, try it out.
All right. Christian Kamen here. I'm also the founder. I got 3 companies. What issue that I have, not issue, but one question I have for you guys is the feeling when you realize that, oh, this is going to work. The emotion you have. Can you talk about the emotion we have when you figured out you got a niche on the market and the mindset you took about it and how you went about it?
So our original goal was to work in 11 schools, and whenever we wrote the proposals, send it out to 11 schools, and we figured, this is a really good program, right? People said it will work. We got responses from 2. That's not a really good return percentage, but whenever we went to those 2, we started hearing from the teachers, we started hearing from the students, we started hearing from the parents. The way we figured out that we had something is by getting feedback. And I think the best thing that you can do is get out to your customer and figure out if they actually like what you're doing. Create your product just like a little prototype, just the way we did. And then go week by week, say hey, do you like this? Some teachers hey, try this a little bit better. And then we go back to the drawing board, tweak it. The next time they say, hey, that was a lot better. The kids say, hey, I don't really like this. Okay, tweak it again. And then as you keep on going and going and going, you get feedback from your customer. Eventually, you're going to have exactly what they want, and then you got a niche in your market.
Before I answer your question for my story, I want to know, do you know what it's like to feel the emotion of knowing this is going to work?
Yeah.
Describe that to me.
So my first company was a personal trainer.
Uh-huh.
Then the second one was a tech company, so we built app and applications. And the third one was a SaaS program, like an application platform online. So that feeling that I have is when you realize you got X amount of, a lot of demand for your product, and then you cannot cover it all. And then you figure out, I got to hire more people, and then I got to figure out what I need to get. And then that whole process is really exciting, but also nerve-wracking. So that's for me. That's what exciting for me. Like little trouble here, but also exciting because you see the growth going forward. Yeah.
What he just described is a company that he found there was a demand, and then he got excited because he couldn't keep up with it, so then he had to create a team to be able to fulfill that demand. I can already tell there's a difference in the feelings that each and every individual has when they realize they can do well in a business, because when I finally realized I was competitive my first convention, when more and more people started coming to me and saying, hey, I heard you're doing commissions in only 5 minutes. That's a lot faster than other people, and it's cheaper. Can you do me? I would just look at them and be like, well, you've got 30-something people behind you. Are you okay with waiting 5 hours? And they would say yes. And that's when I knew I had my niche. These specific people who are okay with walking back every few hours just to see if it's ready, like that's how you know you're successful. But me, I didn't have the feeling of, oh yeah, most definitely. I know that I can expand more, or it looks like there's so much demand. I'm so independent-minded that I never thought in my head, I should probably hire more people so I can get more money and do this. All I could think was, I'm probably gonna die with my business, and I'm never gonna give it to anybody else. There are gonna be some people like that. If you've heard some podcasts from some business people, I believe the person who did Cliff Bar, have any of you guys eaten Cliff Bar? That guy had to work a lot to be able to create the perfect recipe for Cliff Bar. And all it was about was Whole Foods. Before, it was just Power Bar that they were going against. And he even got sued by Power Bar, and he had to settle anyways, but he kept going. The issue with him is that now he's getting older and he just finished retiring. He's not really giving it to anybody. He gave 20% of the company to his employees because he doesn't see a successor. That's the same for me. I didn't have any emotion when I realized I was competitive. I just thought, okay, that's nice. I'm gonna go study tomorrow. That's how I felt. So everybody's different. Who knows if you'll be like me or like him or like any of these guys. Just know that as long as you're happy and challenged, then you're an entrepreneur and you did what you wanted to do.
For me, so I told you I made that big promise of 1,000 coconuts. So every single day, I have my POS systems on my phone. So I was sitting there constantly checking it, like every 5 minutes, like, oh, did we get any more sales? So I did the math, and I was like, I got to sell 33 a day to hit 1,000 a month. And so like, if I was like, oh, I only sold 10 today, that means I got to do 53 tomorrow. And I was doing that math and just constantly checking my phone, seeing what our sales were doing for that day. It was like a slow start, and then it started to pick up really quickly. And it's every month there I have to turn in a sales report, a monthly sales report. And I actually have to pay a percentage of rent if I, go make us above a certain amount of money. It's called a break-even point, which we hit our second month. He said I'd never hit it, but so it cost me more money, but it's a good thing. So I was making more money. But for me, definitely like turning in that first monthly sales report, and then I didn't want to walk in there with my tail between my legs, hey, I didn't make it this month, but I'll make it next month. So I was really nervous, and I think that really made me, push that much harder to hit that goal and to be able to do that. And then that second month, I had somebody send me a message on Facebook that said, hey, I work for Northwest Florida Daily News. Could I come talk to you? And I was like, absolutely, that's awesome. And she came and talked to me and took some pictures and stuff. And she's like, okay, we'll write a little article about you, in the paper. It'll be out next week. I was like, okay, that's fun. And then I was in Walmart, and I completely forgot about that, to be honest. And then I looked down I was at the checkout, and I looked down, and I saw my face on the front page. And that was definitely kind of that moment for me where I was like, oh, wow, like, this actually works. Like, people actually enjoy this. Like, this is actually working. So I did feel really, really good about that. And another thing for me, though, is what that article is about. So in it, they put, so 2 of our employees last year were actually active duty military members, 2 females that were in the Air Force. And one of them, she was a single mother, had 4 kids, and she worked for me 3 days a week. And actually, she made more money working for me than she did on her active duty job in the military. So she was able to put her kids in daycare and able to take her kids on a vacation at Disneyland, actually. So things like that, like that's what means the most to me. The money's awesome, but being able to change people's lives and help them live a better life, to me, that was like the most important thing. So whenever I realized that I was able to provide that for other people other than myself, that was definitely like my moment where it really all came together and was like, this is why I do what I do. So for me, it was definitely lots of joy. I've never been that happy, I would say.
Let's shift maybe a little bit to the. You guys have any other question when I add in this? Yeah, go ahead.
So, one more question. I know you guys say you don't micromanage, right? But as an owner, you always gotta do somehow, some way. It always comes up. So, how flexible do you get? Because I got a company with different states. But how flexible do you get to let your employers take take most of the work, not most of the work, but like how do you get flexible to that? Like go ahead, do what you believe, your ideas, go ahead and put it on the table. But at what point you put the line as an, as an owner to put the input in?
You're referring to what's the boundaries for our specific business,
Yeah,
even by
business.
employee standards, all that
Yeah,
stuff,
yes.
boundaries.
So ours is a little bit different, the way it's set up. I'm the director and I'm like the CEO of our company, but I'm not a full owner of it. We're actually equal partners. So we make most of our decisions on our roles. Like he makes his decisions on the curriculum, I make my decisions as far as fundraising and as well as like the direction of the company, and he makes his decisions on volunteers. But like I said, I keep going back to the team theme, is we make our decisions most of the time together. But I guess in my role, I can say that the limit I put on it is our mission as a company. So our mission is, hey, we want to serve elementary age students in low-income and underserved communities. If you're a middle school and you want us to come, that's great, but that's just not in our mission. And sure, we have a lot of middle schools in the area that want us to come, but in order for us to succeed, we have to keep our focus. We have to make sure that we attack one problem at a time. Once we get this down, then we can start moving into middle schools, we can start moving into high school, which we would like to do, but just keeping that focus and saying, does this fit our mission? And that's why I draw the line, Milmer.
My business is two people. It's me and the person who's gonna help me, basically the secretary. Have any of you guys in this crowd been in such a soul-sucking job where you have so much work to do and you don't even have time to eat? That's my job. So the idea here is my boundaries is if you are not good enough, then you're out. I created my business also thinking about the ideal employee. They're good under stress. They can adapt to the situation of a whole bunch of different people asking them questions they may have never asked or talked to with their friends. People are gonna ask you about, it's because they're in a convention and they're having fun. People are gonna ask you about, hey, how are you doing with this? Like, hey, how did you do this? Or is your makeup like this? Or just a whole bunch of things where you don't expect it. You've never been asked that before. You have to put on that smile and you have to go ahead and joke with them and then make jokes and then they can give jokes back to you and then you all of a sudden just pitch, my friend here likes to draw artwork just like that. Maybe she could draw it for you for $5. That's it. I need someone who can actually do something like that. The boundaries that I have is if after one convention, you haven't picked up enough after 3 days how to be able to market yourself and me, while I'm drawing and then you're texting them that it's done, and then by the time they come, you give it to them, then you put it inside the spreadsheet. Then you're always keeping up with who it is that you should be marketing to next. Then you also tell me the next pictures to draw. Then I give it to you, you put the right sticker on it to show that we're done with this, and you do not mess it up too much. Then you can stay for the next convention, and you get full hotel, you get full food paid off, you get full transportation paid. It's basically a paid fun vacation, and you get to have full access to a convention, but you have to work for it. So everybody, if you haven't noticed by now, everybody's business is different and they all have different expectations and boundaries. For my business, since there's only two people, I expect excellence and a superstar. For other people, they expect teamwork and a good environment. Maybe one day I could set up a company where I could have the culture of forgiveness and all of that, but there's just too much at stake if you don't have the right partner. I'll say it like that.
For me, I was actually having this conversation with Giovanna earlier today. To me, your employees are your greatest asset, and I believe that as one of the biggest reasons why I was so successful so quickly is because, I feel like if you respect your employees and you treat them with respect, they're gonna, do that same back to you. So for me, my compensation plan, I actually have 3 different compensations. So on top of a very above average minimum wage, hourly wage, they also receive credit card tips, cash tips, and they also receive a commission as well on top of all that. So I do like to incentivize them with money. That usually works pretty well. But also I use, so I have an HR manager. She does all my hiring. She does all the interviews for me. She does my scheduling. She submits me the hours for payroll. So I run the payroll, but she will get the whole payroll report together, everybody's hours they've worked. I don't ever have to question it. I don't have to double check it. I give her that freedom, and I trust her. I trust her opinion, and she has let me down. And I just kind of give them that freedom, and by giving them that freedom. Same with my employees. I definitely hold them to a certain standard, given the fact of, how much they're making or the potential they have to make. So I hold them to a certain standard. I don't want anybody out there to text on their phone all day if, I'm, paying them an arm and a leg. But to me, though, whenever, totally lost my train of thought there. Sorry, guys. See, I don't want bad employees out there, but whenever I give them that freedom, they'll come up with better ideas. Hey, what if we did, what if we change it to this color? What if we, put this up here or move this over here? And a lot of times, their ideas are really good. So I'll definitely take all their ideas in consideration. You know what, let's try it that way. If it works, it works. If not, we'll go back to the old way. So I definitely give them that freedom, and I think it gives them ownership in the company, and it gives them something to be proud of, so they're more willing to go, that extra mile for me. So to me, I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, so unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna ask them one more question, then I'm gonna open to question for you guys. But before you leave, in case you need to go to class or something, please fill out this quick survey. It really helps us to improve the Center for Entrepreneurship, and we really appreciate that you came here today. And if you have any advice, you can just write in the back of the paper. We're gonna look at each one, very proud of everything. So. My last question for the panel, that it's really going to help all of us, is like, what advice do you have for us students? Just what advice, if we are undecided if we should continue an idea, just what advice? Like, what would you tell a student? Like, there's a lot of students that want really, I just want to have a good grade in my classes, and I'm not very active going to events to network or so. So, like, any advice that you have for a student now, like, that would be appreciated.
I think the biggest thing you can do for yourself is just to consistently work on yourself. Improve every single day. Wake up and decide you want to do one thing new. Decide, I'm going to read this book that's going to make me a better person. And as you do that, you become a person of value. So I don't know all these things. I have no idea how to run a business. I'm a computer science major. But by becoming each and every day, learning more and more, like she mentioned earlier, listening to a podcast, reading a book, you learn more and more of these things, and you realize there's really nothing new that you're going to deal with as an entrepreneur that somebody hasn't dealt with before, and the information's out there. Honestly, half the stuff that we do, I just Google it, and I figure out, okay, what's a good idea? I'm working on a donorship package right now, and I have no idea how to do a donorship package. I just read a book on it. I just Google it, figure out what I can do. And then find older people who do know something about what you're working on. Get a tribe of mentors. Find people who are really good at what they do. Find an example of maybe somebody who's in the industry. So for a computer science major, most of us know who Steve Jobs is, Bill Gates. They all have their stories. Figure out what their stories are. You'll figure out that they went through a lot of the different things that you went through. You'll figure out that, hey, maybe that's not exactly what I want to do. Maybe this is what I want to do. So I would say work on yourself each and every day. And then whenever you get an idea, just jump in. Just do it. If it fails. I mean, at the end of the day, so what? I have one mentor who always says, the answer's already no, or you already don't have it. So if we start this business and it fails, like, so what? You already didn't have a business. Now you don't have a business. Nothing really changed. So you might figure that you have a great idea that could be the next, $1,000,000,000 company.
My advice for you guys, if you want to pursue a business or even choose the right major, is passion can take you pretty far, but you have to be able to identify your passion. Sometimes when people figure out something that makes them happy, it confuses me, but they move away from it. They know what it is that they want to do, but then if somebody says, you should do this instead, then they purposely don't do that thing that makes them happy. And doing things that don't make you happy is the perfect way to live a miserable life. If you guys have ever had experience talking to someone who they're a genius and they barely work hard at all and then they succeed, sometimes those type of people can really pull you down when it comes to, oh, well, if I work hard, I'll never be as good as those people. And I've suffered through that a lot ever since I came to America. I wasn't good at English that fast. I wasn't good at math. Now I tutor math and chemistry and physics, by the way. But it should always be mentioned that passion, a person who's passionate will find themselves improving in a talent, let's say artwork, much faster than those who have an inborn innateness to have been able to do it. That person could find themselves not working that hard because they think they're already at a certain level. But if you have and pursue your passion, you'll inevitably go faster than they will. And you might find out that that's your business or that's your dream. So that's my advice for you guys.
My advice, definitely I'm going to agree with Basil over there. Definitely invest in yourself. Read books, whether you're listening to podcasts, if you don't like to read. Me personally, I chase business conferences all across the United States. I'll be in Las Vegas next month for a business conference. If you guys ever watch Shark Tank, I've hung out with Damon John, Kevin Harrington, Tim Grover is Michael Jordan's coach. And I try to learn from people like that. So I find all kinds of mentors, and I try to absorb as much knowledge from them as I can. Another thing that helps me personally, I write my goals down every morning. I write down 3 goals, and I write those goals down again at night. So all through the day, kind of tries to help me focus on those goals. And definitely, I would say start now. If you have an idea, or even if you don't have an idea, maybe you want to get involved with your friend, that has an idea, or help them, because everything you do is as long as you learn from those failures or learn from anything you do, you're going to keep moving forward. So I would definitely recommend to start now. Write your goals down. And for me, another big thing was mindset. You got to get your mindset shift, because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe your business is going to be successful, if you don't believe in your product, then how are you going to expect anybody else to believe in that product? So that would definitely be my advice for anybody that wants to start, is to go ahead and do it.
All right, let's give them a big round of applause. One of the best panels we had here so far. And you guys have any other question would like to add? You can, yes.
I am still working on my team. And that is actually one of my biggest challenges right now, is trying to create a team that can help me grow and everything. Like I said, I have an HR manager that's great, and she's with me year-round. My other employees are seasonal, part-time. So that's actually one thing that I'm trying to currently figure out. So I have the same question as you. Maybe Basil has some answers for us, though. You have a pretty good team. So.
Yeah, I do have a rock star team. I would say that, like I said earlier, is becoming a person of value. We've all heard like birds of a feather flock together. If you keep on working and working and working, I met all of the people that I work with in different organizations on campus. I met Carson in our AI research group. I met Yasmin in student government. And then I met Marcus when we were founding our National Society of Black Engineers. So I was trying to surround myself with people who were better than me. And then just being totally honest with yourself with what you're not good at. I know I'm not good at marketing. I know I'm not good at drawing, so I try to find somebody who's really good at that. I know I'm not good at really small details. I'm good at seeing big picture things, but really small details of how things are actually going to happen, I'm not good at that. But Marcus is extremely good at seeing those things. So finding out what you're not good at, being totally honest with yourself about that, and then seeing who's around you is like, hey, is this somebody who's really good at it? And then approach them like, hey, are you interested in being a part of this team?
I can tell you what makes a really good employee and what possibly you could be like if you really want to work for the big people. They want to see good work ethic. So if you have one of your friends who they give 120% without having to be told to, that's already a really good chance of being a good employee. Also, make sure to surround yourself with people who think like you. You may find them to be really good opportunities for making a team as well. Make sure they have the same values and core principles as you, because you guys will see alike. And then, just like he was saying, you gotta also make sure to hire people who are smarter than you. Sometimes bosses, since they're in a higher position, can be intimidated by their own employees, but you shouldn't be. You should always be looking at them like they have great potential and they're great inspirations. If you get over the shame and the pride of, oh, I'm not the biggest person here, you can get so much out of a good employee. When it comes to building a team, though, you also have to make sure the chemistry is right. Just because they have like a PhD in marketing doesn't mean that they'll work well in your team. Personality is always the key, and what I've noticed is work ethic. Without have been told to, are they still working? That's a good sign. Any other questions?
It's on?
Yes.
Okay. Chava Rochelle. I have a question for Basil and one for Alex. I went to Mr. Studer's EntreCon, and two of the things he said, A students work for C students, and you have to plan for where you're going and not where you are. My question to you is, you said you didn't have a tangible tool, Do you foresee like building some kind of platform that will provide a tool for learning, or something like cameras or in-school cameras where the parents could see the students and how they progress?
So our goal is working with kids in low-income and underserved communities, and there's a lot of tools for kids if your parents have the money to afford it. That's what we found in STEM-related fields. So you can get a Lego Mindstorms, which is a little robotics kit, and your kid can learn how to program at a really young age. The only problem is those cost next to $400. So if you're a kid who's in a low-income area, that means your parents probably don't have $400 worth of flexibility to work with. So our goal, whenever Carson writes a curriculum, the first things we figure out is how can we make this as fun as possible and as cheap as possible. So the average cost for one of our projects to work with, we worked with 53 kids, it cost us about like $35. So we've actually been funding this entire thing by ourselves. And I mean, we're college students, we're all broke. So if we can fund it, then we know that a parent can fund it. There's been a lot of interest in actually purchasing the curriculum, and we're working on that. We actually just yesterday, we had a meeting with our lawyers, and we're working on that, getting our things filed, getting intellectual property. That way, a lot of the parents who, when they came to parent night, they said, hey, how can I do this with my kid at home? You can provide them with that type of curriculum. We do simple stuff. I mean, it's like Diet Coke and Mentos. You can get that for $2 at a corner store. Or, you know, baking soda, vinegar, and hot water. That's already in your cabinet. But it's science, and that helps the kids learn more and more for a really cheap method.
Thank you. And Alex, thanks for your service. Do you use search engine optimization? And if so, are you with local, do you partner with like local entrepreneur groups? And like, is your push and pull strategy, do you do stunts or anything to pull in with the marketing?
No, great questions. So actually, this is kind of sad. I'm a marketing major. It took me about 2 months last year to even get a Facebook page for my business. I had done over $50,000 in sales before I even had a Facebook page, which is really embarrassing on my part. You know, I do have a Facebook page now. I don't have, the website's still under design because we're trying to, you know, decide what we're going to include in that website. So my SEO presence online right now is absolutely terrible. I'm not really there unless you type in my exact business name. You're probably not going to find me. But I did at the beginning. I did a lot of mobile events. So I met a lot of people through that. I had a lot of corporations, you know, reach out to me after that. You know, they grabbed my business card just at the mobile events, whether it's gallery night or, you know, different Pal Fox Market, just random events throughout the area. So that's how I got a lot of my work at the very beginning. And then absolutely with coconuts, they're big, they're green, they're like bigger than your head. So at the beginning, by the beginning of the day, you know, I'll give away maybe 2 or 3 and have people walk around with them. And, hey, just tell people where you got it from. And people will just come up to you. I'll do it sometimes myself. I'll take off my work shirt and, you know, so they don't know I work for the company. I'll just walk around with a coconut, and people walk up to me, oh, where'd you get that? I'm like, oh, it's this awesome place right over here. Like, yeah, it's right in front of, under the tiki umbrella. So really for me, that's kind of easy as far as marketing. And what was the last part of the question? That was it. Yeah, so I actually have had the opportunity, a lot of it actually through UWF, through the Center for Entrepreneurship at EntreCon. I just happened to be sitting in the audience next to somebody that was pretty important. And, you know, he asked about my business, and I, you know, kind of almost wrote him off for a second. But it turns out that he is the owner of Cox Communications, and I have catered them several times. And I guess I impressed him, so now I'm the exclusive catering for all their events in anywhere in Florida, Northwest Florida. So that was kind of cool, and he actually introduced me to some other friends of his that I have since done business with, so that's really awesome. So I do try to go to any local events. Civicon, you know, I met some great contacts there as well, and I try to get involved with any kind of groups that I can. I went to a workshop last week, actually right here at UWF, and I met a few other veteran entrepreneurs, and I've actually moved forward with one of them. One of them owns a trailer company and is building me a trailer right now. So I definitely get out in the community and try to make my presence known that way by connecting with people. And I think that's a really cost-efficient way to do it as well. Whenever you don't have a lot of money, I don't know if you guys have ever used Google AdWords or try to buy them. They're very expensive. If you ever try to use Facebook ads, they're very, very expensive. So I think that was a really good way, especially bootstrapping for being a startup. That was a really good way that we were able to market ourselves.
All right, so thank you guys so much for coming here. And I think Dr. Rinaldi want to say something. And
Well, let's give these guys a hand. Is this an You're like you can do this. You can do this as well. I was just sharing with Carson earlier a quote that's attributed to Winston Churchill, that maybe Africans are here, and that is, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. What matters is to keep going." These guys have been keeping going. Is that apparent? It's one of our best presentations, and we're just delighted that you were here to share with us. Come back. We have every week we're going to have a presentation similar to this. I'll remind you about Civicon coming up next week with Bob Graham. It's going to be a signature event, and we're delighted to help you prepare for successful careers and lives, and to provide opportunities for you to interact with role models that have been there, done that, and help guide you to your success. So again, thank you. Again, you've done a wonderful job.
yeah, Basil, just want to add one more thing before we leave.
So our organization is completely volunteer based, and we would like to work with different organizations on campus. So if you have an organization, or if you personally would like to come out, see what we're doing, feel free to talk to myself, Carson, or Yasmin in the back. We'd love to see everyone get involved and give back to the community. So feel free to approach us.
It's a good opportunity.
Also, if you guys want to work with me and you want a challenge when it comes to really fast marketing, especially if you're a marketing major, just come to me after the event.
I guess I'll throw an offer out there too. Come March, we will be hiring. So if you want to go work out in the sun on the harbor in Destin and sell some coconuts and have a lot of fun doing it, definitely look me up. Find me over on Facebook or Instagram, anything like that. Find me.
How did you deliver 1,000 coconuts in a month?
In a month. So we're out there at Harbor Walk Village. We're out there from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. So 12 hours a day. We usually have about 2 employees work 6-hour shifts, and I incentivize them with money. And if they sell over 50 coconuts in a single shift, they get 10%. So if they sell 100 coconuts, they made $50 on top of their hourly wage, and they usually average anywhere from 60 to 100 dollars in tips a day on top of that. So they definitely want to, they're trying to sell them just as much as I am. So they'll just engage people, greeting people, acknowledging people. So yeah, they just kind of sold themselves, which some motivated employees.
So again, thank you.
And you guys can just leave this on the table. I will grab it. Thank you so much.